And after some technical difficulties, our Raptors season preview is live and we're not lagging because my finger's moving and I'm not freaking out. Okay, perfect. The Toronto Raptors are 22 days away from playing basketball. How do I know this? Because I've been counting it down on X/Twitter. Every single day, I post a Raptors jersey with the number of days that it's remaining until the Raptors face the Denver Nuggets in the preseason. I'm looking forward to this season. And one of the reasons I'm looking forward to this season is because there's a lot on the line. There's a lot to be determined. How well does Brandon Ingram fit? Is he healthy? Is he damaged goods? Have you signed up for a lemon? I don't know. Do you know? Is Jakob Poeltl worth it? Will Emmanuel quickly finally morph into the beautiful off-ball player that you signed? Will RJ Barrett be traded? And will this man, Scottie Barnes, ascend to stardom, superstardom, or super role player? I think there's a lot of things that need to be answered, man. There's a lot of things that need to be answered. Nice one saying, I have a feeling this season will be like 2006, 2007. Man, one can hope. One can really hope because that was an absolutely beautiful season. And in this video, I'm going to take you through the entire season. I'm going to take you through the schedule, the cap sheet, the draft picks, the key markers, the key moments, the key risers, the key lineups, some key plays, how the spacing works. This is going to be a great episode. If you're wondering why I restarted it and why I was so finicky about it, is because I did put a lot of work into this episode. It is, one of those episodes that I want to do every single year. And if you're someone who's been sleeping under a rock all off season and you don't know who Sandro Mamukelashvili is, and you don't know anything about Colin Murray Boyles, and you've just kind of been waking up like, let me see what the Raptors are doing right now. This one is going to have you fully covered completely and from an objective lens, not a homer lens, not a Scottie's going to be an MVP and RJ is going to be the best player in the world. No, we'll try to be realistic, but hopefully a little bit more cautiously optimistic. So let's start with where we're at, the big picture. I think this is the big place where to start, right? The big picture is the big place to start, which is, what is your franchise direction and identity? The Toronto Raptors spent last 2 years tanking for lottery balls. One of the lottery picks they didn't even get. The other one they spent on Colin Murray Boyles, a player that a lot of people, critics, think you already have on your roster between Scottie Barnes and Jonathan Mobo. Arguably, his staunch supporters would tell you he's probably the best player in the SEC last year, and the SEC was the greatest conference in collegiate basketball history. You're, you know, some people might say Colin Murray Boyles might actually push Cooper Flag for Rookie of the Year. That's optimistic, but if that works out, you certainly have a direction. Grady Dick, what's he about? Jacoby Walter, can he pop? The Raptors are on, I don't want to say record, but they've let it slip that they would have taken Jacoby as high as like top 6 in the last year's draft. If that's to be believed, does it even matter that you lost the 8th overall pick? If you would have spent it on Jacoby Walter anyway, you got that 19th overall pick back for Pascal Siakam, and you spent it on a player who showed a lot of promise last year. I think there's sort of a mixed timeline approach here. Not quite to the Warriors level with James Wiseman and Steph Curry standing on opposite ends, but rather is this good enough to go forward timeline, right? Is Scottie plus some solid pieces plus all these young players coming up? And is that enough? Is that enough? Or do you have to go one more dip into the tank and try to find an AJ DeBonso or a Darren Peterson? Do you have to do that? And I think that the early part of this season will definitely signal the Raptors don't have grace. They really don't. They don't have wiggle room. They don't have that thing where you can have, a bad 2-3 months and it's just all going to be okay. No, Bobby is under scrutiny right now. His path, his vision, him and Dan Tolzman, they're the ones in charge now. Masai's gone, right? And MLSC wants results. And they spent the entire last season, depending on how much you believe, tanking, right? They weren't just not good last year. They were trying not to be good. So now, if you try to be good and you suck, that's a big matzo ball, man. That's a big matzo ball. And if you've invested a, max contract in a dude who comes out and averages 17 points per game playing off of Brandon Ingram, and Ingram breaks down, I mean, this thing can fall off the rails so fast, right? There's a few things, obviously, that the Raptors have going for them. And we'll talk about the cap sheet and future flexibility and draft picks and whatever. But the other thing they have going for them is the East is very weak. And that is what has risen, if you're looking at it, the Raptors made the move for Brandon Ingram before Tyrese Halliburton and Jason Tatum went down. So the thinking of, hey, we're in the lesser conference should only be more solidified given all the rumors we've heard about Joel Embiid and also the fact that Jason Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton are expected to miss an entire year. But don't sleep on the entire East, right? The Knicks have gotten better. The Magic have gotten better. The Hawks have gotten better. I think Indiana and Boston are being slept on a little bit, and I think they'll hold water. So I think there's actually some realistic expectation that the East could be a little bit better than you're thinking. And in that context, where is it that the Toronto Raptors float? Because last I checked, you didn't acquire a single player this direct offseason as good as Norman Powell. And Norman Powell went to the Miami Heat basically for free. And so Miami has also gotten some reinforcements, right? Cleveland is also better. There's a lot of teams that are better. There are very few teams that are worse. And this idea that the Raptors are surefire top 7, top 8 in the Eastern Conference, I think depends on how low you are on Philly, on how low you are on Milwaukee, on how low you are on Miami, because to me, there's really no penetrating the top 4. And the top 4 of that Eastern Conference, we'll talk about a little bit later. But in terms of that cap sheet and everything that we're talking about here, let's look at the outgoing picks and in terms of what you have incoming. The good news for the Toronto Raptors is they have all of their first round picks going forward. They have 2026. They have their 2026 outgoing second round pick, but they've replaced it with potentially a worse pick with the Lakers. They have their 2027 both, 2028 both, 2029 both, 2030 both. And then once again, they have another outgoing second round pick in 2031 to the New Orleans Pelicans as part of the Brandon Ingram trade. But in terms of, picks going out, you have 2026 second round pick going out to Indiana, and then you have your 2031 New Orleans going out in 2031. Not bad. So these picks, which a lot of people don't really value and are very, very quick to say, no, dump 3 picks for Cameron Johnson. Who cares? We'll get better right now. These picks offer you some maneuverability and some ability to shed some contracts should you choose to go the DeMar Carroll route again. They also allow you to bring in reinforcements. And let us pray that we do not go the Thaddeus Young route this time and go more the Derek White route. And if it is Derek White, if it is Drew Holiday, if it is somebody like that you opt for it and an upgrade, it'll probably take 1 to 2 first round picks to do it. So probably a good thing that you have some of those picks. In terms of the cap sheet, you can see it on the screen. Your highest paid players, Scottie Barnes and Brandon Ingram, take up about 49.6% of the cap. That's a lot of money to spend in 2 players that have a lot of question marks going forward. But I think that's a hell of a lot of talent. And big wings are all the rage. Emmanuel Quickley, this is a make or break year for Emmanuel Quickley as well. Tried a lot of on-ball stuff. We know he's better off-ball. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. RJ Barrett, does he get an extension? He is extension eligible very soon. Starting in October, he is extension eligible. What will that look like? Reports are the Raptors don't have any plans on offering RJ Barrett that extension, so he is just basically going to be sitting into next offseason as an expiring. Jakob Poeltl has been extended. He's an interesting fit. But I think there's still some questions about whether he can be the starting center on a deep playoff team, given the notable weaknesses as a shooter. Ochai Agbaji is another player who is extension eligible very soon. Some people have said he may command anywhere north of $10 million. The Raptors are known to overpay players that they believe in long term. I think, honestly, Ochai Agbaji could be on the move, but we'll talk about that soon. The saving grace for this roster and, frankly, this cap sheet is that Colin Murray-Boyles, Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter are decent players who are very cheap. Jamal Shad is as well. And so a lot of your backline rotation, players like AJ Lawson, Jamal Shedd, Jonathan Mobo, Jamison Battle, these are all really cheap players. You also have, I mentioned it in this offseason review, that I felt that the Raptors were not necessarily utilizing their two-way spots as well as they could, which I felt like there's a lot of redundancy in terms of project-y type of players that I don't think can contribute in the NBA right now. Elijah Martin, Chucky Hepburn are a little bit too much of the same thing for me in terms of level of skill player. I wonder if the Raptors will do what they did last year and will opt to cut one and then maybe float with an open roster spot, or maybe opt for an older player who fits more of a need right now. Because to me, it's like you got a glut of wing players and you got a lot of needs on this team, man, a lot. And we're going to talk about that briefly. Obviously, there are some camp hopefuls. Tyreek Key is one of them. Olivier Sarr is another, and David Roddy is another. Of those players, I think if I had to rank them, David Roddy number one, Olivier Sarr number two, Tyreek Key number three. None are of huge consequence in terms of the cap sheet right now. If you're looking at the long-term salary, you might have to squint a little bit. I might make myself small and just let you see this entire screen. This is sort of where we're at right now in terms of the long-term salary. And your really long-term salary is Scottie Barnes, Emmanuel Quickly. Those are your two long guys, and Jakob Poeltl. So that's your core. You're tied into that core. And the problem here is you got a lot of questions about every single player. There's no Giannis, there's no Jokic, there's no Shea, there's nobody of that level, which like I can bank on that guy being first team All NBA next year. So you got questions. You got bigger questions than the Orlando Magic have questions right now. You have bigger questions than the Hawks have questions right now. You probably have bigger questions than the Miami Heat have questions right now because I think Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo probably proved a little bit more over the last 2 years than Scottie Barnes and Brandon Ingram. I think you're banking on a lot of things going right, and I'm right there with you. I'm banking on those things going right as well. Please give this video a like. And please subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and consider becoming a member if you haven't become a member. We have 1 day to fulfill our 100 member quota or goal, and we are 10 away. We are 10 away. So if you want to become a member, link is in the description. In terms of the franchise direction, what are you trying to be? Right now, I see a lot of wings who have a lot of skill gaps. I see a lot of players who occupy a lot of similar places on the court. I have a lot of players who have shooting as their biggest concern, from the Jonathan Mobo to the Scottie Barnes to RJ Barrett at times as well. There's a lot of wings who can't shoot. There's a lot of wings who can't really defend. There's a lot of wings who can't create. Is there some sort of consolidation move coming, the one that I've been projecting and hoping for like a year now, where you can get a different type of player on this team, a Malik Monk, a Cameron Johnson, a player like that who just doesn't exist on this team? There are a lot of really valuable player types on this team. Big playmakers are good. Defensive versatility is good. But at what point do they start to get off in each other's way? Lauri Markkanen would be a great addition. Do the Raptors have the pieces to pull off a Lauri Markkanen trade using RJ Barrett? I think that's going to be instrumental, but ultimately, I think you have the flexibility to go either way right now. You can certainly take a look at what a Scottie-led Ingram co-led offense looks like, and then you can funnel the pieces around. You can make decisions. If you decide that Ingram and Scottie are really that legit to take you through the Eastern Conference gauntlet and maybe even make a deep playoff run, it would be silly not to explore upgrades at other positions and to find reinforcements and maybe consolidate some of that youth and overlapping skill set into a player that fits a little bit better around them and can maybe complement their skill sets a little bit more. However, if Ingram becomes an injury prone player in his tenure in Toronto, if things don't work well, if he and Scottie have oil and water type chemistry, if he doesn't play well off the ball, if it's kind of my turn, your turn basketball, if you can't buy into Darko's offense, well, now you might have to go the other way. Now you might have to find a taker for Ingram, a taker for Quickly, and start to reset again and then, tear the shit down again. There's no guarantees here. I project this team to win a lot of games this year, but there's also a world in which this team goes out and wins 30 games again. Like, it's totally possible. It'll be, a lot of it will be injury dependent, and I'll take you through my bullish and bearish outcomes of the season and what might happen. But in terms of franchise direction, I think the thing that has a lot of Raptor fans concerned right now is it's all up in the air. Yes, you're building around Scottie Barnes. Is he good enough to be a playoff number one? A lot of people think no. I think yes. So we'll see. There's a lot of questions. We'll dig into Scottie a little bit more, in depth. But I think there are some concerns here for sure. You'd be lying to yourself if you said there weren't. This is the Eastern Conference last year. Last year, the East was Cleveland, Boston, New York, Indiana, Milwaukee, Detroit, Orlando, Atlanta, Chicago, Miami. And right at the cutoff line, a full, 7 games behind the Miami Heat were actually the Toronto Raptors. And this is where I think some people have to have some trepidation and say, well, how much better does the 11th team in the Eastern Conference get, even if Jason Tatum and these guys fell off because those teams are already ahead? Okay. The Toronto Raptors were missing Emmanuel Quickly for more than half the season. They were missing Scottie Barnes for 17 games. They were missing Jakob Poeltl for over 20 games. They were missing RJ Barrett for like almost 30 games. They had a really young team. They were trying to lose basketball games. They tried to implement their defense in stages, and the early parts of it was really bad. They had a lot of question marks. They played a lot of G leaguers. They tried to rest guys in back to back games. They did a lot of things to try and lose basketball games, and they didn't have Brandon Ingram, and they didn't have Colin Murray Boyles, and they didn't have Sandro Mamukelashvili. And I think that those three are very positive additions. So I think there's some clear, obvious they're going to be better than 30 games. Like it'd be hard to be worse, right? But how much better? So let's go through it. I don't think Philly's going to be this bad because Philly was not that bad last year, and they're going to have Tyrese Maxey, and they're going to have Jared McCain, and they're going to have VJ Edgecombe, and potentially they're going to have a healthy Paul George and Joel Embiid. A lot of ifs, a lot of what ifs. But if they do get a healthy Paul George, if they do get a healthy Joel Embiid, you should probably pencil them in as Raptor tier or above, and probably edge towards above. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers are a team you can pencil above. I think the Boston Celtics are probably a team you can pencil below the Raptors. And that might be controversial for some people who believe in Jaylen Brown as a single star. I'm not one of those people. I don't think they have enough. I think they're going to lose a lot of games. And I think they're going to lose with purpose because, there's a strong incentive to tank this year. And I think the Boston Celtics are smart enough to know that without Tatum, they really don't have a chance. He's by far, far, far their best player. They're a very expensive team. They can continue salary dumping with the contracts of Jaylen Brown and Derek White. And who knows, maybe they tear the whole thing down and they rebuild around a recovering from his torn Achilles Jason Tatum in a couple of years from now. We'll never, we don't know until it happens. I think the Knicks are better. I think the Knicks are clearly better. They have better depth. I think the coaching shift is going to make them a better regular season team. It remains to be seen if they're going to be a better playoff team. We'll see. But I think the Knicks are better. I think the Indiana Pacers can be in the relative sphere of the Raptors. I think Siakam is going to show a lot, and I think their depth and defense and coaching can get them through. I mean, this is a prideful team. This is a team that made a deep playoff run. Losing Tyrese Halliburton hurts. It changes how you play. But don't forget how they got there. They got there with defense, man. They got there with like quick pace. And yeah, you're losing your best passer and your engine and all that stuff, but they were fantastic with Halliburton on the bench too, They were a good team. Ben Mathurin steps into a larger role, for sure. Pascal takes more shots, sure. We'll see. If Benny the Bucket, who a lot of people believe in, was a top 6 pick, if he can step up, if Andrew Nembhard can prove to be enough of a defensive upgrade over Halliburton and enough of a shot break. This is a make or break season for him too. He's not very well paid. This is a huge audition for him. And this is a team with a lot of pride. As I said, this is a team that should finish north of 40 wins. You look at the Chicago Bulls. I don't have a lot of hope for the Bulls. They're a very young team. I just don't see it. The Hawks, a lot of questions, man. A lot of questions with injuries. Jalen Johnson's been injured a lot. Kristaps been injured a lot. But if that team's healthy, they should finish ahead. The Magic, I think, are going to push 60 wins if Jalen Suggs is healthy. The Detroit Pistons, I think they could take a step. I've projected them to take a step back, but, I don't think the synergy between Cade and Ivy was necessarily that great last year. So who knows what they're going to look like. I think they're going to miss Malik Beasley a lot. Tobias Harris had a very outlier strong season last year, defensively especially. But I think some of that can be compensated for the fact that they do have Asar Thompson and Ron Holland coming up behind. And shoot, those are really, really talented players. So the Pistons could push 45, 48 wins. They could also bottom out at about 40 wins. They'll be in that group. The Milwaukee Bucks, I think the loss of Dame is going to hurt. I think the loss of Brook Lopez hurts, although his defensive issues have been well stated. I do think Miles Turner is just a pretty overrated player to me. And Giannis plus Miles plus not a lot else does not spell a playoff team to me. I think they're going to be in the play-in. So that's the East. That's what the Raptors are up against. And you can obviously talk about the Miami Heat 37 and 45. I think they'll be 45 and 37 this year. Just flip it around. So if the Raptors are going to be in the top 6, it's probably going to take at least 46 wins to get there. It's not going to be as watered down as people think. And this is my early hot take. I don't think the East is going to be that bad. I'm looking at what these teams are doing. Yeah, sure, the bottom is going to be terrible. Okay, fine. The Washingtons and the Charlottes and whatever, the Nets of the world. Like the Nets are going to be a nice, easy 4 wins for the Raptors if they play their cards right. They're going to be god awful. Some people are projecting Michael Porter Jr. to lead the league in scoring or be second or close. Yeah, sure. lead the league in scoring. You have nothing. You lost arguably your best player in Cameron Johnson. I think you replaced him with a worse player in Michael Porter. And his press tour this summer is just giving me a lot of pause for concern. So I don't think they're going to be that good. In terms of the Raptors' placement in this, I mean, it remains to be seen, but they have something going for them, and that's the four-headed initiator. I think this is going to be the Raptors' superpower. I think a lot of people are saying, like, oh my God, how can this team function? I think unpredictability is a good thing. There's a reason why teams like Indiana are successful. It's because they have a lot of places where they can start their offense. And if you look at Indiana, how many places can they start their offense? I mean, apart from Miles Turner, they can start their offense pretty much anywhere, right? They can start it from TJ McConnell. They can start it from Pascal Siakam driving. They can start it with Tyrese Halliburton. They can, it's important. And we saw a team like the Boston Celtics that the last two teams that have represented the Eastern Conference in the finals have been teams with many initiators, many players who can start off an offensive possession. And I think the Toronto Raptors, while maybe not on the level of Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, Derek White, maybe not on that level, maybe not on the level of Tyrese Halliburton plus Pascal Siakam, but it's not that far. I don't think it's that far. Like in what I'm describing, I'm not describing like super duper stars here. I'm just not, right? And the ability to be unpredictable with your offensive sets, I think the question mark becomes Ingram and Quickly have phenomenal off-ball potential, right? They don't get in anyone's way. They're dynamite shooters. They can space to the corner. They can space above the break. They have like incredible synergy, right? But both of them occupy a ton of usage and on-ball possessions over the last couple of years. How willing will they be to move off the basketball to allow their less shooting inclined teammates to cook in the middle of the floor, which is to say RJ and Scottie, right? Because RJ and Scottie among these four are by far the two weakest shooters, and Scottie is the weakest shooter of them. However, I think I push back on Scottie being a weak shooter because, again, I was looking at Aaron Gordon's early season stuff because now Aaron Gordon's turned himself around as a shooter. And Aaron Gordon was shooting like 68% from the free throw line through his first few years. Like he was horrible. And Scottie was like north of 78% last year. He became a pretty good pull-up jump shooter from the mid-range. I mean, he's shown some solid touch around the rim. There's a reason to believe he can be like comfortably average this year, 36%. There's also plenty of evidence to suggest RJ can be 36%. So now what are we doing? Now we can truly unlock this whole thing. Now we can be very unpredictable. They all are different, which is very important, by the way. You don't want too many similar players because similar players can be stopped by similar players. A pick and roll kind of runs dry when two identical players run the pick and roll because they don't get an advantage, right? The switch is the advantage. Jakob Pertl setting a screen for Emmanuel Quickly is the advantage. That's why Davion Mitchell and Jakob Pertl had good synergy, or Fred VanVleet and Jakob Pertl had good synergy because the one who can stop one can never stop the other. And so the separation is created. Now, the question becomes, can the same person who is ideally spotted for Scottie be the same person who can stop Barrett and Ingram? Do they have enough difference between them? Right? Shea and Jalen Williams are very different basketball players. They have very different physical profiles. They have very different tendencies. And so there's shift, there's difference, right? Like you don't want the same two players on the team. Like I think the Raptors found this out when they tried original Vision 6-9 with Boucher, Achua, Kembridge, whatever. There was too much similarity between the players. And Siakam, Barnes, I think there's more similarity between Siakam and Barnes than there is between Barnes and Ingram. I think Ingram and Barnes are very different basketball players. And I think that is going to help. I think it's going to help. I also think that it tremendously helps that Scottie and IQ have amazing off-ball value. Like Barnes in the half court as a cutter, as a screener, as a roller, even sometimes as a pick and roll ball handler can be really good. In transition, even though his numbers, which shout outs to Raptors Republic. There was an episode yesterday with Dealey and shout outs to my guy Dealey and Samson Folk where they were discussing the Raptors and the Hawks. And they pointed out that Scottie was like 350th in the league in transition efficiency, and it was horrible. I think you have to look at the game, you have to watch the games and just decide for yourself whether you believe that he's not a good transition player. I think he's a fantastic transition player. I think very often last year he went away from dominant play types that we know he's efficient in. And I think that goes away this year when the goal is to win. I think you're going to get more offensive rebounds. I think you're going to get more crashing the glass on the defensive end. I think you're going to get more defensive dial up. I think you're going to get more off ball play in general. I think he's going to go. I think to the people who think he's going to be Helio Hub and just kind of like Luca mash the basketball, I don't think that's going to happen. But to the people who think he's just now that Ingram is here, he's just going to settle into this purely off ball role, I also don't think that's true. I think it's going to be somewhere in between the two, and he's going to find a sweet spot where it's going to be a lot more catch and shoot off the corners. But I think this four-head initiator thing is really interesting because, again, how many teams enjoy the luxury of employing four players that can realistically be the ball handler in a pick and roll? RJ took huge steps as a playmaker last year. Quickly has taken huge steps as a playmaker the last 2 years. Ingram and Barnes are already amazing playmakers as wings. I think this is the superpower of the Raptors. If you want to talk about all the deficiencies they have and all the overlaps and all the inexperience, yes, those are all valid concerns. But if you want to look at this court, I mean, I'll just draw this out. It's not super sophisticated or anything, but just try to understand like how the court might look with these five players on it and how the spacing might be bent. I don't think you can completely ignore Barnes and RJ Barrett, but this would be the worst possible way to run this five-man unit out there, right? Barnes and Barrett shrink the floor in the middle, unfortunately, because neither one of them are knockdown, lights out three-point shooters. I also think putting them in the corner limits some of their creativity on the drives. So that's certainly one way. But just because you start the offensive position doesn't mean you have to end the possession this way. And so in this situation, Jakob Poeltl could set a screen for BI. RJ could cut baseline. Scottie could set a screen for IQ here. And then, boom, Scottie is rolling down and Scottie is resetting. And now the court looks a hell of a lot better, right? Because now you got Scottie and BI on this side, and they can really, really milk this. And you can't really double down on Scottie because you got knockdown shooters and you got the skip pass over to RJ in the corner. Now things are a little bit better. Now I think things are getting a little bit better. I mean, look at some other formations. There's some other different ways that you can do this. I think Brandon Ingram's a really good player above the break. I think he's going to be able to stretch the court vertically, but I think Emmanuel quickly can do the same thing. But RJ in the corner is a staple. RJ's ability to thrive in this offense is going to be how well can you hit corner catch and shoots, because that's going to be a huge part of his role. Transition kick aheads, point of attack pressure, just being physical, grabbing rebounds, initiating the break, and mainly hitting those corner threes. That's going to be RJ's job. He's going to be hitting a lot of catch and threes, catch and shoots. And again, the spacing is a little funky at times, right? Here you're running a sort of triangle adjacent thing, but do RJ and Yak do enough in that corner? If Jakob Poeltl goes and screens RJ's man and RJ cuts to the rim, is that a dunk? Is that a dunk for RJ? Scottie just throws it over the defense. The more you look at these, sets, and the more you look at the court, and if you get into the X's and O's of it, the more you want Scottie and BI to always be in the middle near the nail. But one of those two players has to occupy that spot. The other one has to be capable away from that spot, spacing out for the other. So whether that's Scottie in the corner or Brandon above the break, and then Yak is consistently going to be ping-ponging between IQ and RJ to relieve them of their matchup so they can cut in or cut around or space or catch a movement shooting. But here is how Sandro Mamukelashvili could change the court completely. So if you change one factor of this, which is you add a 37% three-point shooter like Mamu to the lineup, this is how things can change very quickly. Now here, Scottie is just right at the nail, and you've just got max four out, one in spacing. And Scottie is just free to go one-on-one against his defender. And the minute he draws a second defender, it's just a matter of ping to the right shooter. It's very unsophisticated offense, as 5 out, 4 out, 1 in type of offense can be quite unsophisticated. But here you have the same formation. Once again, Mamu, his ability to stretch above the break and, to the corners even, and you add Grady Dick to this in place of RJ Barrett, and you suddenly start to see that spacing can be all right. And again, you can also potentially add Jacoby Walter to this. I think your concerns are when you start adding Jamal Shed to the lineup, Jonathan Mobo to the lineup, Colin Murray Boyles to the lineup, which of these players is going to emerge as a shooter? And if none of them emerge as a shooter, do you potentially feel comfortable pushing Jamal Shed out of the rotation, running Scotty or RJ as backup point guard so that you can maintain your spacing? Because I think spacing is going to be very, very important for this team. Moving forward, again, like you can see a court with Colin Murray Boyles and Scotty Barnes. I think Colin Murray Boyles is a player we're going to talk about a little bit later. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's going to be really, really good. I think some people have misread my entire commentary on Colin Murray Boyles, thinking I don't think he's good. I think he's fucking fantastic. Last year, in front of the draft, I was looking at my notes. I was digging up some of my Excel notes, and I was looking at my pre-draft evaluation in 2024. I wrote next to Colin Murray Boyles, uh, first overall pick question mark, and I had him preseason. I was looking at my draft notes again as a surefire top 5 pick this year, and he had a better season than I thought he did. I just think the problem is I just didn't pay enough attention to Colin Murray Boyles to South Carolina as much as I would have, because they were a losing team. But where were they a losing team? Again, in the best conference in collegiate basketball history, and he shot 69% at the rim in that context with horrible spacing and horrible teammates. There is a world in which he is a corner shot away from pushing RJ Barrett out of the starting lineup. He's that impactful defensively. And offensively, again, can you hit the corner three? It's really that simple. It's the same question we have with Jonathan Mobo. It's the same question we had with Jacoby Walter. It's the same question we have with everybody who comes on this team is, can you just hit corner threes? And so Colin Murray Boyles is going to have to choose whether he's going to be Draymond or OG. But in either case, he's going to be a massively impactful defender. He's going to be a really good rebounder. He's going to be a great screen setter, and he's going to be NBA physically ready. And right now, I think because of his intelligence, he's going to be ahead of the curve with most rookies. I just don't think there are a lot of rookies who are as smart as this guy. And 2 years of collegiate basketball is going to put him ahead of some of his younger draft mates. But here, you see a pathway to just this jumbo team with Sandro, BI, Colin Murray Boyle, Scotty Barnes, and Grady Dick. We're just like, whoa, that's a big team. They can soak up a lot of space defensively. They can cut down a lot. And I think BI is just such a cheat code when it comes to that. Let's look at some other questions. Team core questions. Star power and centerpieces occupying the same space. We talked about that a little bit. X factors and roster overlaps and player development tracks. In terms of star power and centerpieces, I think Scotty and BI represent two sides of the same coin, which is just highly undervalued, very disrespected stars who are just, their stock is right at the bottom, right? Both were injured a lot last year. Scotty, if you believe, the narratives, played through a really, really sore hand, which impacted his shooting a lot. Played in terrible context, played on really bottom of the barrel teams. Neither one had another player as good as them, and as good as they will this year consistently to play off of. And I think that, again, when you really break down, like, who are the players that consistently go number one in the draft? Well, why don't you talk about who's going number one in this year's draft? AJ DeBonsa, Darren Peterson. What do they have in common? Big playmakers. We like 6'6" playmakers, unless they lose for a couple of years, in which we forget that they're still 6'6", 6'7" playmakers. And in the case of Scotty and BI, they're 6'9" playmakers. And I think there's plenty of all-star, superstar, I don't want to say superstar. There's plenty of all-star, all-NBA type of upside with both of them. I think the matter will be just synergy, fit, and that's it. And I think Brandon Ingram is just so far ahead, better than Grady Dick right now and probably forever, that I just don't see how this move can hurt you at all. He does everything Grady does better than Grady. I don't know how it's going to hurt you. He's so much better defensively. He's a much better player offensively. And it's not like you were running Grady out there like he was Max Strus or Duncan Robinson. You were running Grady out there like he was Brandon Ingram last year. You were having him throw ahead to the rim, pull up jump shots, corner threes. A lot of the same stuff is going to be asked of Brandon Ingram, except, again, with a lot more gravity and a lot more defensive focus and a lot less running, right? X factors and roster overlaps, again, we'll talk about that briefly, but occupying the same space. I think this is somewhat overstated because the two players that are often considered spacing complications for the Raptors most certainly are Scotty and Yak. And I think where they uncomplicate things a little bit is that they're both solid screeners. And I think Yak is just an elite screener and Scotty is a developing screener. And I think they're both just really smart off-ball players who have really good finishing ability. And I just refuse to believe that teams like, a lot of people talk about the spacing that the Golden State Warriors had. the spacing that the Bulls had, the spacing the Lakers had. Go watch those teams, man. There's plenty of players who can't shoot on those teams and cannot shoot as well as Scottie Barnes on those teams, and they find a way. Kevon Looney, Kevon Looney found a way. Sean Livingston was not a great 3-point shooter. He was a good mid-range shooter. I think if you can score, you can pass, you can make quick decisions, you're never really a spacing nightmare. And I think Scottie and Yak, they can work together with proper spacing around them. It's not optimal, it's not perfect, but it's good enough, right? And in terms of player development tracks, we will definitely talk about some of those young players that need to develop here. So obviously, when it comes to star power, it comes down to these two, right? And how well they play is going to be how well this team goes. It's not going to work if these two don't find a way to win their minutes together. It's not going to work if these two don't find a way to be efficient. It's not going to work if these two can't find a way to plug up gaps defensively. It's not going to work if Brandon Ingram is playing one style of offense and Scottie's playing another style of offense. And it's not going to work if they're also too afraid to be themselves. I think that's very important that both players remain themselves, right? That Scottie do the things that he's comfortable with, Brandon do the things that they're comfortable with, and sometimes those things are gonna have to require the other person to sacrifice a little bit. Yeah, Scottie, I know you want to get into the mid post, but this is BI's turn. You gotta fan out to the corner, and BI, I know you want to cook with the basketball, but that's not how we play here. It comes down to a delicate match between Darko and the players that he has, where on the one hand you have players who can do so many things. Ingram can score on all three levels, and he can do a million things on offense. Scottie is also a very dynamic player offensively, not to the level of Brandon Ingram offensively, but there's a lot of places where you can put him and be successful. And I think it's just going to come down to cutting some of the fat out of their games and finding out what works best. And Ingram already started on a path last year to taking more threes. I think that's going to continue even more. I mean, everyone has taken more threes with Darko, right? Quickly has taken more threes. Barrett's taken more threes. I find it very hard to believe that the best shooter of the three, well, I think Quickly is a slightly better shooter than Ingram, but I think Ingram is a more unguardable shooter. So it would be surprising if the best scorer of the three did not also take the same marching orders of taking more threes. And so I do think that this pairing could be really good. In terms of the roster overlap, there's plenty of roster overlap, and there's one or two of these players need to emerge ahead of the bunch. Now, I don't know where you stand on that, right? But you can't play all these guys, right? And yet, if I told you very realistically that Colin Murray-Boyles was the best player in this group, would you be that surprised? Probably not. If I told you Grady Dick was the best player in this group, would you be that surprised? Probably not. If I told you that the young players really, really struggled and Ochai Agbaji emerged as the only really playable player from this group, and all these other players were pretty much like getting developmental reps as Sandro Mamukelashvili, Jamal Shed, and Ochai Agbaji were forming an 8-man rotation, would you be that surprised? I don't think you should be that surprised. There's a lot of parity here. These are, and to use NBA 2K terms, these are all players that are probably ranked between 71 and 76. Someone has to rise above. Someone has to clearly determine themselves as being consistently good at both ends of the court. With Mobo, obviously, you're getting way more defense than offense. Same thing with Jacoby and Colin Murray-Boyles. And obviously, with the other three, you're getting more offense and spacing, but you're not going to play all six of these guys. You're just not. And they're kind of all small forwards in a sense. I understand there's like some potential and some optimism that Colin Murray-Boyles can maybe even play some small ball center. There's probably some optimism that Grady can scale up to being a guard, that maybe Jacoby can handle some point guard reps, specifically if he's on the court with another creator, he can maybe even be a defensive point guard. Maybe that's the way we go. Maybe that's the way we go. Maybe the real competition here is between Jacoby and Jamal Shed, and to see who's going to be the backup point guard defensively, because I don't think that either one of them has really separated themselves. They both have glaring weaknesses as a point guard. And yeah, so I think it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Jamison Battle or Grady Dick as the odd man out. It also wouldn't be surprising to see Jonathan Mobo in the G League this year. I really don't know which of these players is going to rise up. But if you're a Raptor fan, as much as your season is riding on the synergy of your starting five, it is also riding on at least two of these players emerging as head and shoulders above the rest as legit NBA players. Legit, right? Leon Knight saying, "Where's the link? I don't see it. The link for what, sir? The link for what? The link for call-in is in the description. The link for membership is also in the description. It says join or call in. We'll take call-ins after the show. If you want to call in, we will take some. If there's no call-ins, we'll just move on. Okay, moving forward. Roster construction overview. So, lineup concerns, new additions, odd man out candidates. Okay. So, in terms of lineup concerns, obviously there's a couple, right? I think there's a lineup concern of redundancy between Barrett, Barnes, Ingram. I think there's a lineup concern of you're missing that player who consistently pressures the paint. You just don't have it on your team at all. It's the weirdest construction. You don't have a player as good off the dribble probably as Jordan Crawford, and he comes off the bench for the Knicks. Like, I mean, I'm not even underselling it. You don't even have something that mimics that type of player. You know, that rim pressure guard who just consistently knifes the defense off of a quick first step. Think Rob Dillingham, think Allen Iverson, think, I'm obviously stating a legend and a rookie. That type of player is just missing. And without that consistent rim pressure threat, you you really haven't had it in so long. It's so weird to me. Quickly is probably one of the fastest players in the league. What did I say? Did I not say Jordan Clarkson? What did I say? So Quickly is one of the fastest players in the league. For whatever reason, he doesn't get to the paint as furiously as I would like him to, right? But he has some potential to do something of this sort. Jamal Shed, again, floater range stuff was pretty decent for Jamal Shed last year. Rim finishing was quite terrible, and he's a little bit vertically challenged, so he's probably not going to be that guy. I think the player who could probably do this doesn't exist on your roster, and the player is uh I said Jordan Crawford. My bad. Jordan Crawford is a former NBA player, by the way, but my bad. Clarkson. Uh, the player who could probably do this for you is Malik Beasley, man. Uh, RJ is very efficient at getting drives off, but very inefficient at finishing free throws and finishing in the paint. So the combination of a player who can just knife through the defense, De'Aaron Fox. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about De'Aaron Fox. I'm talking about John Moran. I'm talking about that type of player. And if you don't have that level of player who can do this, some type of player. So that's a concern that you may be stuck just kind of taking a lot of contested twos without that ability to shed the defense. You might be over reliant on screens and cuts and transition. And a lot of that stuff will be hard to figure out in the playoffs. And I think if you're looking at downhill threats that aren't guards, you're talking about Zion Williamson, right? You're talking about Zion Williamson, LeBron James in his prime, guys like that. I think you need something like that on this team, man. And that's probably like the biggest concern for me. Other than that, obviously spacing concerns, as I mentioned, there's a lot of players who are probably some of your best defenders can't shoot. Mobo, Barnes, Colin Murray Boyles, Jakob Pertl, probably your four best defenders. None of them are great shooters. So do you compromise a little bit of that defense for shooting? Do you overplay Ochai Baji because he gives you a little bit of both worlds? I don't know. Uh, Bueno Kitty saying, did Penn make the subs goal? I have one more day to do it, but no, I am 10 short right now. Uh, the membership goal, you mean? Yeah. So I mean, that's some of the lineup concerns. I think also, we can certainly talk about the lack of provable, guys off the bench is certainly another lineup concern. The odd man out, my bet is Grady. I don't know why my bet is Grady. It might be because I wasn't that high on him prior to the draft, even though I got really high on him in his rookie season, and I tried to sell myself on the optimism. The defense was just so bad last year, man. So even if I believe in Grady's talent, and I'm really, really, really rooting for him because he could make a huge difference for this team, and the perfectly maximized version of Grady is like to me reminds me of one of my favorite players, Drazen Petrovic, and I like Grady a lot. Believe me, it's just a defensive effort and toolkit is so poor. The way he moves his feet defensively gives you no hope that he has any chance to be a perimeter defender. And he's not big enough to be a big defender. And I just don't know if this is something he's going to be able to fix with more strength. With Jacoby, you're like, okay, well, he struggles with screen navigation, but he'll find a way because, he'll get stronger and he'll find a way to, film study and get around it. There's nothing physically wrong with him. With RJ, he's physical. He's a lot better than Grady, and at least he tried last year. With Grady, it's just a compounding issue of a million things going wrong at all the time, right? There isn't a great positional size matchup for him. He's not able to really leverage some of his plus size at the rim because he's not a great rim protector. He's not as good a rebounder as we thought he was going to be. He's nowhere near the lights out shooter he needs to be to compensate for all of this. There's just a lot of mediocre shit, and the analytics suck on him like really bad. So I think this is a make or break year for Grady. I hope he knows it. I hope he knows that if he does not like really pull himself up by the bootstraps here, I mean, nice one. I think it's way too early to say it's a wasted pick, but it doesn't look great so far. And there was a really hot stretch to begin last season, which gives you hope that maybe if he can find a way to keep that strength that he just keeps losing throughout the season, then maybe he can be a lot better. He does a really valuable thing, which is he does pressure the defense consistently, and he is trying to do the right thing. And he does have a very hitchless shooting form that gives me a lot of hope that he's going to be a really good movement shooter. And movement shooters are so much more valuable to me than stationary shooters. So it's a worthwhile bet on upside. It's certainly a lot better than some of the players who were picked ahead of him, like Jet Howard. But it's not looking like he's going to be a star right now. And if he's not going to be a star, he needs to defend. So I think that's very important. And, if it's not him, it might be Mobo. And again, the Mobo thing hurts me personally because I love Jonathan Mobo and I was super high on him prior to the draft. And it's just like if he can't find a way to be like a 33% 3-point shooter, some of the defensive stuff is going to get wasted away. And you just pretty much drafted a younger Jonathan Mobo who might even have like better touch, better feel, does a lot of Jonathan Mobo things with Conroy Boyles. So while I think those two can play together, I think the fact that one of them was the 31st overall pick, and the other one was the 9th overall pick, and one of them is younger, means the Raptors will definitely, in my opinion, probably prioritize the growth of CMB, which may squeeze Jonathan Mobo out. So my bets would be odd man out, probably Jamal Shed, Jonathan Mobo, and Grady Dick. Those are my beyond that, Ochai Baji. The guys who I have the highest hope for are Colin Murray Boyles and Jacoby Walter. Biggest needs: a steady backup point guard. I hope Jamal Shed can become it, but I don't know if he will. I think he needs that jump shot to fall at a consistent rate, and I have been seeing him work really hard. So maybe he'll do that. If he doesn't blossom into that, I don't think Chucky Hepburn is going to be that. And barring that, you don't really have another backup point guard on your team. And some people don't even think Manuel Quickley is a point guard. So, maybe it'll come down to Scottie and RJ splitting duties as backup point guards with lineups with Jacoby where he guards the other point guard and they run their offense through him. It's not the worst thing in the world. But again, in terms of first step, burst, twitch, you could really use someone like that, right? In terms of a microwave 3-level score, again, you don't have one. You really don't have one. The Jordan Clarkson thing, right? Like you just don't have that type of player off your bench. The Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, that type of guy, the Lou Williams archetype. And I do think those players can just add buckets and add value in that sense. And you just don't have that type of player. And then rim protection will be a huge thing. If Scottie Barnes is your second best rim protector, I think you're probably in trouble. Like you need somebody to come off the bench who can do what I hope Ulrich can do in 4 years, but do it in 4 weeks. And I think rim protection can be somewhat misunderstood. It's the final level of the defense. Yeah, if you have enough length and enough pressure on the perimeter and you pressure the ball the way the Raptors do, sometimes the basketball doesn't even get to the rim. But when it does get to the rim, and inevitably in the playoffs against better teams, it does matter that Jakob Poeltl is not an elite rim protector. That matters that Rudy Gobert is like the benchmark, and Jakob Poeltl falls 15 feet short of that benchmark. So, when other teams are employing guys like Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, et cetera, Ivica Zubas, like there's so many good rim protectors in the league. The fact that you haven't gotten one elite one will matter. At some point, it will matter. Someone saying, 5 Adams saying we need a backup center. We'll see. We'll see. New additions. Obviously, I'm very high on Sandro Mamukelashvili and Colin Murray Boyles. I think they're both going to be fantastic additions to this team. I think both provide a steady level of high IQ, high basketball IQ, good off-ball movement, good synergy within the system. They're just really good basketball players. There isn't a lot more to say about it. I think Mamu could be potentially as great as the sixth man of this team, as bad as out of the rotation. we've had a lot of players that have had a lot of high hopes about. I mentioned this in my off-season review that, the I was pretty high on Steve Mihalik. I was pretty high on the addition of Juancho Hernan Gomez. Neither one knew how to shoot with the Raptors. I don't know what the hell it is. Some of these players, they come to the Raptors. 6'7" to 6'10" shooters coming to the Raptors is just never a good thing. Lamont Murray. I bring you back to Lamont Murray. Hedo Turkoglu. Damari Carroll. It's a really depressing list of players who just came to Toronto and forgot how to shoot. So I am praying Mamu is going to break the curse that all the work that he did this year with Georgia, in the Eurobasket, he was fantastic. That all of that is going to help him be ahead of the curve and carve out a nice rotation. And obviously, the fact that he's played with RJ before helps them, especially because I think RJ will get some reps with that second unit. Moving on to funky lineups. I'll give you a few funky lineups, but I think the coolest thing about the Toronto Raptors is they have the chance to experiment with a lot of funky lineups because they have so many multi-positional players. Realistically, how many positions can Fred VanVleet play? I'm just using the Houston Rockets as an example. You can probably play one, max two, right? How many positions offensively and defensively can Alperen Sengun play? Probably two. How many positions can Kevin Durant play? At this stage, probably two. And so, you see it and you're like, man, most teams have a lot of landlocked players who, you know, they can play one, two positions, maybe three. How many teams have this many players who can play four positions? Ingram can probably play three. I think Colin Murray Boyles can play three. I think Barnes can play four or five. Mobo can play three. Like there's a lot of opportunity to try out some very, very large lineups and also some very small lineups. And I think that type of lineup flexibility can allow you to change pace, disrupt rhythm, right? If you have like, for instance, if you have a team that is like killing you on the glass, you have an opportunity to go very, very big. And I think without destroying your offensive flow, like you can put Scotty Barnes at the three, Colin Murray Boyles at the four, Jakob at the five, or even Mamu at the four, Yak at the five, Ingram at the three, Barnes at the two, and you can just supersize yourself, right? Alternatively, when you face a team like Indiana and maybe they don't have like this dominant paint player, unless you call Siakam a dominant paint player, maybe in that situation you can put Barnes at the five. And I think Scotty is the one who unlocks all of this because he really can play one through five. And that ability to either be the one or be the five in a jumbo lineup or a small lineup, in addition to the fact that you have all of these super long defenders. So even though Quickly is 6'2, 6'3, he's probably 6'3 actually. I've seen him up close. He's 6'3. Even though Quickly is 6'3, the 6'9 arm span is just like you don't really have any small players on in your rotation other than Jamal Shed. He's the only one. So I think you have some opportunity to try some very, very cool things and throw some adjustments and haymakers at people. Here are a couple of examples of some of those crazy lineups that I was talking about. Barnes, Ingram, Murray Boyles, Mopo, Pirtle. Oh, the spacing is going to be horrible, but it is funky. And that was the promise. I promised funky, and you got funky. How about a less shooting declined lineup or disinclined lineup? Quickly, Walter, Dick, Ingram, Barnes. Like that is a perfectly viable team. Like Barnes is more than capable of guarding fives in a pinch. Like he maybe not the whole game, but he can do it. What about Barnes, Barrett, Ingram, Murray Boyles, and Pirtle? Again, spacing can be a concern with Murray Boyles and Pirtle, but as I said, if Murray Boyles can hit the corner three, this is a non-issue. Barrett and Murray Boyles in the corner, Barnes, on the opposite wing, Ingram and Pirtle maybe running pick and roll. Like this can be fantastic, but defensively it can be huge. Quickly, Dick, Ingram, Barnes, Mamukelashvili. And we talked about this one before. Quickly, Walter, Barnes, Murray Boyles, and Pirtle. And what about Barrett, Barnes, Ingram, CMB, and Mamukelashvili? I think there's a lot of different ways that you can roll this out if you're Darko Rajakovic. I think a lot of it is going to be really fun to watch. Health will be important, though, obviously. Take Ingram out of this and everything just kind of floats apart. Offensive identity and defensive identity, and of course the roles of RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly and their new roles. So I don't think Barrett and Quickly are going to have nearly as many responsibilities or as many opportunities as they did last year. I think they're going to float more into third and fourth options. And I think that's going to be to their benefit. I think Scottie moving away from having to create as much in the middle of the floor is also going to benefit him. Ingram is sort of like he is. Hold on one second. Raptors enjoyer. The Boston Celtics without Tatum are still better than us. This team is a joke. Gave up Siakam and OG and Kawhi, and we are a joke, man. Why are you so committed to the idea that we are a joke? What if we are not a joke? Will you then once again go back to living up to your name and be a Raptors enjoyer? Because right now you don't seem like you're enjoying the Raptors very much. And I'm sorry to hear that. But I hope that things will be better for you going forward. Hold on one sec, man. Shit. I will donate you $100 if we make the playoffs. Bookmark this. Well, you can just sign it over now. We're making the playoffs, but okay, cool. I got you. I got you. There's a lot of people on PC who want to talk a lot of shit about this stuff too, but yeah. Tariq saying old version of Rob would have cooked this Raptors enjoyer. See, what joy, what joy would I get from that? Screaming at a person who's totally anonymous and saying like, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." No, man, it's cool. Like, you know, you're entitled to your opinion for sure. Okay, moving on. The roles of Barrett and Quickly. I think, as I said, last year both got a ton of on-ball reps, and that's probably not necessarily to their benefit at times, right? Because again, like it does matter. Like there's a level at which you need to create efficient half-court offense, and I don't think either one of them can do it nearly as well as Ingram, right? And so playing off the ball, I think they both have advantages that they can milk. And, you know, Jimmy High Roller just did a video on Steph Curry and trying to identify the player closest to Steph Curry. And somebody sent me an email saying, like, can you believe how it's not an email, it was a message and a DM. Can you believe how high quickly ranks in some of these things? And I was like, yeah, I see it. I totally see it. Like I see Curry adjacent stuff. He's not Steph Curry. He's not going to be as good as Steph Curry, but he is not a player that you can ignore at 28 feet. And that type of vertical spacing is like when I say vertical spacing, I mean like up the court spacing, that spacing up to 29 feet can really, really unlock driving lanes for Scottie, Ingram, Barnes, etc. So uh, quickly initiating less will probably be a good thing for him. Playing more off the ball will be a good thing for him. And Barrett being more of a receiver of plays can be a great thing for him as well. And I think to compensate for that, either Quickly or Barrett or both can play a ton of high usage minutes with the second unit, which features a lot of players who need offense created for them. What did I say was wrong about the Celtics being better than us? Brown, White, Pritchard, Minot, Simmons, and their draft pick. Yo, man, as high as I am on Josh Minot, chill on that. Anthony Simons is the worst defensive player in the league. Derek White is amazing. I love him. Jaylen Brown is overrated. Peyton Pritchard is like probably my height. Like, I mean, I'm not even trying to be nasty about this, but like for real, like, you know, it's not that great. Did I say Bill Simmons? Am I losing my mind? Anthony Simons. I just don't think I don't think they're that great. I don't think they're that great, man. I think if you need any evidence of that, Chris Boucher is probably going to be the starting power forward. You might believe in that. You might. I don't know. You might. Man, I got to speed up, and I am losing my voice as I'm going along. I'm kind of losing my voice slowly, but shout out to you guys for bearing with me. I apologize. I have to clear my throat. I am um, going on a couple months of just not feeling so well with my throat. But anyways, hopefully nothing wrong health wise. Moving on, Barrett Quickly. I think, I just think these two are going to settle into a much better role this year, and it's going to be a lot more efficient for both of them. and they'll get their touches with their second unit. In terms of turning points, bad matchups, big matchups and rivalries, statistical benchmarks, and we had an entire video on the Raptors finally having a rival, and I think the Knicks will certainly settle into their big rival because they're in the Atlantic Division. They feature former Raptor. We have former Knicks. It's just across the border. There's the rival of the big markets. I think there will be continue to be dissections of Scotty versus Mobley, Scotty versus Franz, Scotty versus Paolo. Those are more like Scotty rivalries. But in terms of like a pure Raptors versus this team rivalry, if the Philadelphia 76ers are good, it'll be the Sixers and the Knicks. So I think that that's going to be the rivalry and the big matches. So games against those teams are going to matter a lot. You're going to face them 4 times, and we'll talk about statistical benchmarks in a moment, but and we'll talk about turning points as well. I think this is going to be one of the more interesting parts of this live, where we dissect the schedule. And the schedule is important. This is the schedule. This is every single game prior to November. And I've mentioned before, this is a really brutal schedule to start. And those first few games, Atlanta, Milwaukee, Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, Cleveland, Memphis, Milwaukee, there's no guaranteed wins there. So the ones that are marginal wins, like San Antonio, Milwaukee, Atlanta, you got to get some because you're probably not going to beat Cleveland and Houston. And so it's just going to come down to that, right? I've set a target before December 1st of 8-13. I think that will be a solid place to be. Now, every single target is going to be how far below and how far above are you, right? Now, if you're 13-8 after 21 games, well, now you are maybe in the position to have to start exploring upgrades on your roster. But if you have 5 wins, like if you legitimately start 5-16, I think you need to start exploring pulling the plug. It's that quick. That's how much patience I'm going to have with this team. I cannot get right now. I don't know what's going on with me. But the point here is 8-13 would be reasonable. Anything below that, anything above that, I would adjust, right? And if you're drastically above that, obviously start throwing confetti and planning the championship parade. And if you're drastically below that, probably start exploring tearing it down because things are really, really not going right. And again, I think to the people who are thinking that the East is wide open, etc. Yeah, it is to a degree, but you're still going to have to win at least 40 games to be in that conversation towards the end of the year as your schedule softens out. You just don't want to be playing behind the 8 ball this early in the season, and you really don't know. You know what I mean? Like you need a cushion. You need a cushion, right? You need a little bit of a cushion because injuries happen. Barnes, Ingram, like these are guys who've been injured a lot over the last few years. Let's just be straight up. Quickly, yeah, these are all guys who have extensive injury histories. You don't have the greatest proven depth behind them. So it's not like you have the Los Angeles Clippers, which is like a team of geriatrics and ex all-stars where, okay, one guy goes down and there's Chris Paul to step right in. Chris Paul is better than every single player who comes off the bench for you, if you want my honest opinion. He just is. At basketball, if that's what we're measuring, he probably is. So you don't have a lot of wiggle room. And if things are just not working early, you might have to pull the plug a little bit sooner than you'd like. Going beyond the first 21 games, if we factor in December as well, now my target is 15-18. So on New Year's Day, I would target 15-18 as my benchmark. Once again, if you are 10 wins at New Year's, time to tear it down. If you have 22 wins, 20 wins by New Year's, maybe time to look at Lauri Markkanen trades. I think again, like there's the economics of tanking and stuff, right? People talk about it all the time. Like, what is the cost benefit, etc. You have your pick this year. There's no protections, nothing to it. So and unlike last year where there's like this one big prize and then a whole bunch of mini prizes, this year there's like 3 big prizes at the top of the draft. There might be a strong incentive to tank. If after 33 games, which is where we're at right here, you're like 10-23, I'll be calling for the tank. Don't you worry. My goal after January, so heading into the trade deadline, would be 24 and 26. And again, this is your toughest part of the schedule is done. Your West Coast is done here. This would be golden. 24 and 26 for a team implementing a lot of new players, assuming a lot here. Assuming that Jacoby's going to be a better player at the end of the year than he's going to be at the start of the year. Assuming Colin Murray Boyle is going to get better throughout the year. Assuming Scottie and Ingram will find more synergy as they go out throughout the year. Assuming a lot of things, I think 24 and 26 is a healthy place to be. How bad would this need to be for me to call for the tank? Anything below 20 wins on January 31st, I think I'm calling for pull it, tear it down. So it's a margin, man. It's margins and it's splits. So I'm not necessarily even trying to hype you up for the season as much as I'm telling you the season is going to be won on the margins, and it's going to be as dire as we need to win that game against Charlotte. And losing that game against Charlotte on January 7th is like you're fucked, right? It's important. All these games are important at the end of the year. It's all going to count. There are 2 games missing here, obviously, for the in-season tournament. We don't know what that's going to be, but I just factored a 1-1 record. And my target for the end of the year, it's not my projection, but this is my target, is 45 wins. 45 wins for this team will be success. Now, Vegas has set the line at 37.5. Okay. Raptors enjoyer, this guy right here, said he'll give me $100 for nothing, just if the Raptors make the playoffs. Obviously, I have higher expectations of this team. 45 and 37 is my target score for this team. Anything below that will be considered a failure. Anything above that will be considered a monumental success. Given all that you're up against, yes, I think that would be successful. Moving on, statistical benchmarks. These are things that I would like the Raptors to achieve. Top 10 defense. The Raptors were top 2, top 3 defense after the All-Star break last year. With Ingram in tow, I think that should improve. Ingram is not a great defender, but he is long, he is lengthy, and with less offensive burden on Scottie, I think he can dial it up even further defensively. I also think there is like something about belief, winning, thinking that you're going to win, that you're aiming for the playoffs, that makes people want to fight harder defensively. And, defense is hard, man. Physical. It's, crashing the glass, fighting over screens. This shit is hard. You have the athletes to do it. Whether you're talking RJ, you're talking Grady, these are all good athletes. Grady's a good athlete. You should be able to defend really well, and the more you ramp up that defense, the more you win the possession battle, the more you give yourself an edge to get out in transition, run, and stay away from having to create in the half court. And RJ and Scottie and IQ, these are all good transition players. I don't care what the stats say last year about Scottie in transition. He's a good transition player. IQ is a good transition player. These guys are good transition players, and I think Brandon Ingram will be great trailing the play too. So, yes, top 18 offense. Setting the bar a little bit low, but it's not that low when you consider they've been bottom 5 like for the last what feels like 10 years. No, not 10 years. For the last 5 years, the Raptors have been really awful offensively. I think top 18 would be a monumental step up, and I think it will be in large part due to how much better I think Ingram is than the players he's replacing. Top 22 in three-point shooting. That would be a really nice bar to hit, given all the non-shooters you have. Top 12 in transition efficiency. And Barnes and Ingram win their minutes. That will be huge going forward. Now, Ingram is still young enough that you can actually see him as a part of a core going forward. And I do think that, if these two have oil and water chemistry and it's not working, nothing's going to work. And I don't care what else works downstream. There's a sort of pecking order of things that have to go right for the Raptors, and Scottie Barnes and Brandon Ingram having good, positive on-court synergy is absolutely the most important thing for me this year, because Ingram is signed up to a very long-term deal, and if he is a guy who doesn't work here, you are hanging on to a very, very expensive asset who's not going to work for you. Scottie Leap incoming. I'll make myself a little bit smaller so that you can see this. These are the 5th-year leaps that Giannis and Kawhi Leonard made. Both players made a significant jump in year 5. For Giannis, that jump was from 23 points to 27 points per game. For Kawhi, that jump was 16 points to 21 points. Can Scottie jump the same number or split the difference between these two? What would that look like? Well, simple math says that would look like a 4.5 point boost on his 19.3, which would be about 23 points per game. Can Scottie be a 23-point per game scorer while adding tremendous value in the assists department, which neither of these players add as much as playmakers as Scottie, in my opinion? Obviously, Giannis adds a lot more than Kawhi, who's more of a non-playmaker. And can he continue to add value as a rebounder? Not to the level, not to the level of Giannis. He's not going to average 10 rebounds per game, but can he get close? Can he get 8? So again, what would a Scottie Leap look like? Here's what it would look like to me. 23 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, first team all defense type defensive impact. So top 10 in defensive EPM would be a really nice benchmark for Scottie. At least 65 games played again. These would be huge benchmarks in terms of analytics. If you're looking for analytic signals and indicators, probably something north of 4.5 box plus minus would be amazing. Yeah. In terms of field goal percentage, I fully expect, in terms of where these guys were in their field goal percentage, Giannis was at 53%. Kawhi was at 51%. If Scottie can get 48, that'd be great. 3-point shooting. Again, you're not going to get Kawhi's 44% from 3. You're probably not going to be as bad as Giannis's 30.7. Can you get to 33? 33% 3-point shooting would be very positive for me. And as free throw shooters, this is interesting. Kawhi's 87, Giannis is 76. Can Scottie get to 80? So these are the benchmarks that I'm looking for, right? 33% from 3, 48% from the field, 80% from free throw line, 4.5 box plus minus, top 10 in defensive EPM, and pretty much hash marks of 23, 23.5, somewhere in there. Now, if one or two of these things doesn't work out, it's perfectly fine. I'm basically building out a dream season for Scottie Barnes, right? This is like an MIP type of season. Maybe the scoring doesn't jump to 23, but everything else holds up. If everything else holds up and the scoring is like 20, we're good, bro. We're good. You got a franchise player. If the scoring dips below 17, 16, if it just goes completely the other way and he just starts going Draymond, I'm going to have a lot of concerns going forward about this team. A lot. And I don't see that in my wildest dreams. I don't think he sees that. I don't think he'd be telling his Twitch streamers that he's going to go out and win MVP. But I will remind you that Scottie Barnes did once say that he's going to average like 35 points per game and that he was on his Kobe shit. And that was right before his second year. So, I don't know, depending on what you want to believe. If you want to believe that Scottie was a much better player last year than the numbers suggest, and that he just kind of more or less coasted into his worst play types in order to develop, that's one side of it. If you're more like Dealey, where you think Scottie is more of an adjacent player to a Jalen Johnson and that he's just a clunky creator and he veers more into the Aaron Gordon, Draymond Green comp, not to put words in Dealey's mouth, but he doesn't seem very high on Scottie if he's saying that he would take Jalen Johnson over him. Well, then, this is a season that can be more of a defensive defining season of that, right? Now, what about CMB? Yo, Calvin Murray Boyles, ready early. Now, of course, if you're going to bank on a player being ready a little bit early, it might just be the best player in the SEC last year. And these are the rookie averages for 4 players that Colin Murray Boyles has drawn some comparisons to. Aaron Gordon, Patrick Williams, Scottie Barnes, and Draymond Green. Where in this would be success? Well, he's not going to shoot 39% from 3 like Patrick Williams, and he's probably not going to average 3 points like Draymond because he's going to get way more opportunity. But could an elevated Aaron Gordon be the benchmark? Could something Aaron Gordon-esque be enough, right? And I'm just like, maybe not, because Aaron Gordon really sucked as a rookie. He averaged about 17 minutes a game. He was considered almost like an immediate, like, oh my God, he's a bust. I think he'll have to go more the Scottie route. And I think the Scottie route is actually, weirdly enough, pretty realistic. Maybe not on the same volume, maybe not on the same opportunity since Scottie started as a rookie, but maybe 10 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, a block, and solid efficiency, and maybe like 30% 3-point shooting, 31% 3-point shooting. I mean, shit. Jonathan Mobo and Jamal Shed were total non-shooters coming into last season. And Colin Murray Boyles has already shown a lot more than Jonathan Mobo at the collegiate level as a shooter. So, maybe he is just a jump shot away from really he's just making himself invaluable. The same thing I said about Carter Bryant in my season preview of the NBA, my awards preview, where I said he can just make himself so invaluable because he's such a good defender and he's so off-ball utility type that he just fits into a million different lineups. Maybe Colin Murray-Boyles can do something similar with Darko Rajakovic, where he's just like the surest thing. When Darko Rajakovic looks over to his right and he looks down his bench and he's like, man, we need a stop, or we need a really solid offensive play, or we need a better decision maker. We just turned the ball over 3 times in a row. Is Colin Murray-Boyles a good enough shooter for Darko to ignore that and say, let's go with this? Let's go with this guy. I think, I mean, obviously, the priority of the organization when you get drafted 9th overall is you're going to get first dibs. You're just going to get first dibs. They take you top 10 overall. You're this super decorated player. They passed up on a lot of really talented players like Kaman Malawech and, Carter Bryant, a lot of guys to get you. So obviously they have a lot of belief in you. And Masai Ujiri, telling Keith Pelly, like, oh, you're going to love this guy. I don't know, man. People are always high on draft picks. They were saying all sorts of shit about Grady. Who knows? But I think Colin Murray-Boyles is a safe bet to be a really long-term NBA player. Like, I would be so shocked out of my mind if this guy was not in the league 10 years from now. So worst case scenario, you have like Thaddeus Young, adjacent type of player, who just does everything. And that's very valuable, man. It's very valuable for a team with so many players, with so many holes. There's some real value to being able to do a little bit of everything. Future versus present, trade deadline decisions, ceiling and floor scenarios, predictions, and season outlook. Let's talk about the trade deadline decisions. Honestly, man, I think, as I mentioned, if you hit the benchmark, right? If you do hit the benchmark that I stated, where you're at that level or above, then I think the trade deadline decisions kind of make themselves, right? Like, you're good, and if you're good, you want to get playoff experience, because I have a streaking suspicion that the Raptors have a streaking suspicion that maybe Scottie Barnes has a streaking suspicion that he's going to be a really good playoff player. And you do want to see this in the playoffs because the playoffs expose you. You know what I mean? If Scottie Barnes is a playoff dropper, I think you want to find out right now. And that's why you need to get to the playoffs, so you can test the hypothesis that he is this ultimate playoff riser and that he's this really, really good player. Also, big shout out. Sorry, I didn't call it out earlier. One of our longtime community members, Arham Basin. Please let me know if I'm saying that correctly. Just became a YouTube member. Shout outs to you. We are 9 away from our goal. Shout outs indeed. 5 Adam said, Rob, I promise to watch your live show if you tell you schedule not hour but days. You mean if I schedule ahead, like by days? That's a good suggestion. Maybe I should do that. Okay. Yeah, so trade deadline decisions. Honestly, I think the Raptors will be buyers at the trade deadline if they're above the benchmark that I outlined, which was 24 wins. And I think there's plenty of players, plenty of teams that could be sellers. There's a lot of teams in the Western Conference right now that have very, very high aspirations. There's a lot of incentive to tank, ton of incentive to tank. And if the Raptors are going to be one of two teams at the trade deadline, either they're going to be the team looking to tank, or they're going to be the team that's going to benefit from another team looking to tank. And one of those teams is looking to tank almost automatically is Utah. And there's a really great player on that team. And another player that might be looking to tank, or another team that might be looking to tank around the deadline, could be the Sacramento Kings. And again, there's another really good player on that team that you really could be looking at, like Derek White. There's another team that could be looking to tank, which is Boston. There's another really good player on that team that you could be looking to add, Derek White. Sorry, I said Derek White twice. Sacramento Kings, Malik Monk. Boston Celtics, Derek White. I got ahead of myself there. So there's a lot of really good players on bad teams, right? Not necessarily rebuilding teams, but teams that may look to go the other way. And those teams may be looking to extract some extra value. So if you're a team that is seeing a pathway to beating the Knicks, maybe being competitive with the Magic, and you think you're a Derek White or a Malik Monk or a Lauri Markkanen away, you certainly have the picks and the contracts to make that deal happen. In terms of, going the other way, obviously, I've already outlined, I think this is totally a draft worth tanking for. I'm not going to be against it if it does happen, if the Raptors roll out really slow, if they're 10 wins and 20 losses. If you ever get to the record 10 and 20 at the 30-game mark, trust me, I'll immediately be on team tank. I don't believe in going against the grain. I believe in letting the season unfold. I believe in letting your players determine which way you're going to go. And if they come out and they're 10 games under 500 after 30 games, that the writing is on the wall right there. You should be so much better than that. Ceiling and floor scenarios. I mean, honestly, the ceiling is pretty high for me. I'd say the ceiling is about 50 wins, 52 wins. I think that's a pretty realistic goal for a team, provided a couple of things break right. Number one, obviously, Colin Murray is going to have to be a lot more NBA ready. Number two, Grady Jacoby, one of those two guys is going to have to be an absolute dynamite type of player off the bench. Like take an unprecedented jump where you're having real debates that are they starters, right? Obviously, the Scottie Barnes and Brandon Ingram thing has to work. Obviously, Emmanuel quickly has to be healthy. Jakob Poeltl has to be good. Sandro Mamukelashvili has to still know how to shoot, even though he's now wearing a Toronto Raptors jersey. There's a lot of things that have to break right, and probably a few things that have to go wrong for other teams. Maybe there's clunky chemistry fit with the Magic. Maybe they suffer a few injuries. Maybe the Cavs aren't as good as we think they are. Maybe, the Indiana Pacers fall apart. Like, there's a few things that are going to have to go wrong for other teams as well. So I think 52 wins is the absolute ceiling. If they exceed that, please know that I'm going to be delirious and dancing on the street. Floor scenarios, it's going to be hard to win any fewer than 30 games. So I would say 30 games, which is what they won last year, is the absolute floor. What would need to happen for that to happen? Catastrophic injuries to Scottie Barnes and Brandon Ingram would be what would do it. 30 wins is how you get there. Colin Murray being a total, worse than Aaron Gordon as a rookie, just totally lost, totally unable to shoot, totally not guarded, totally unable to manage spacing, just unable to deal with the vertical threat or defensive length that is at the NBA level, and just a total bust. No step up from your bench. Ochai kind of disgruntled. RJ really, sour over his contract situation, dysfunction in the locker room. There's so many things that have to go wrong for this team. So again, I think the median between those two outcomes is 42, 43 wins. I think that's a safe bet. 42, 43 is probably safe. But as I mentioned, 45 to me would be a successful season. 52 would be a spectacular season. And 30 would be a disastrous season. That's my range for this team. Here are some of my predictions. I predict 48 wins. That's my prediction. Now, I mentioned 45 would be a solid season, but my prediction is that they hit the over on that. Now, I'm not Vegas. Vegas had the mark at 37. I set my own mark at 45. Maybe I'm too bullish. Maybe I'm too ambitious. Maybe it's because I actually think Scottie is one of the top 20 players in the league, and some people out there don't even think he's a top 50 player in the league. Maybe it's because I think Brandon Ingram's a top 35 player, and some people out there don't even think he's top 60. I'm probably higher on this team than most people in the world, but I get it. First round exit. Yeah, I think 48 wins. First round exit makes sense. You lose to someone, probably Atlanta, Boston, Indiana. Maybe Tatum comes back. Maybe you lose to Philly. I don't know, something. Very rare that a team this young makes it through in the first crack, right? Very, very rare. Ingram plays 55 plus games. I think that's pretty good, pretty ambitious. He has had a reputation of taking very long to get healthy. And, hopefully he is able to be load managed a little bit. Like, I don't think they're going to extend him 36, 37, 38 minutes a night, back-to-backs, etc. I think they're going to play the cautious role with him because he's a very valuable asset for your team. And rehabbing his value could be a massive add because you paid a first-round pick to get him and a second. And a year from now, if this doesn't work out, the worst thing you want to do is be holding on to a player that has an even worse reputation than the one you traded for. What you want to do is you want to have a player who has solid analytics, solid, box score numbers, counting numbers. And now if it doesn't work, at least you go into next offseason saying, we got a 24-point per game scorer who had an efficient season. What do you got for him? And now if it didn't work, maybe you can at least recoup a first round pick back because you'll still be like 27, 28 years old. Barrett and Ochai trade deadline deal. That's kind of my, I have mixed feelings about it. Obviously, I have a lot of belief in both players, and I think there's a version of this team that does work with both those guys on it. But I also think their contract situations complicate the cap so much in the modern CBA that unless they're willing to take discounts to stay here, I just don't see how they can both stay. And with Jacoby, Grady, the investment in CMB, there's just so many players, right? So, yeah. Barnes all NBA plus all defense. Man, that's ambitious, right? I'm obviously banking for a very big year from Scottie Barnes if I'm projecting 23 points per game. So, yeah, I think he's going to be second team or third team all NBA. And I think he's going to be first or second team all defense. Jacoby and Shed pop. I don't know, man. If you told me Shed is out of the rotation and off the team in a couple of years, I really wouldn't be that surprised. I obviously have a lot of faith in the guy. I love the guy, man. Like, I really want him to be good. I want him to do well. I want the jump shot to come around. But wanting things doesn't make them real. Like I want a lot of things. You know what I mean? Like when I was younger, I wanted to date Adriana Lima, and I can promise you that never ever happened. Not once, not ever, not even close. Never happened. You know, so wanting and wishing is not going to make things happen. What is going to make it happen is hard work. And Jamal Shad is a hard worker, man. But the physics of the NBA are simple. 6 foot guards, very, very rare paths to success. And in today's league, holy shit, man. Like 6'1" guards are so rare. So rare. You have to find a niche. You have to find like a dominant thing, and you have to be great at it. Either you got to be the Davion Mitchell, or you got to be the TJ McConnell, or the Fred VanVleet. You either got to be like the best quarterback ever, and you just completely cut down turnovers when you're on the court, or you're a sniper shooter like Peyton Pritchard, or you're like the defensive pest of all pests who can guard up a couple positions like Davion Mitchell, and you're just physical as fuck. Like, I don't know, man. Five Adam, who is she? You should Google Adriana Lima, man. Shout outs to Adriana Lima, one of the premier models of our lifetime. Okay, Jacoby and Shed pop up. Yeah, and Jacoby is like, to me, Jacoby is safe. Like, I don't know if it's because I know Eric. I don't know if it's because like there's a bias there because I'm like way more plugged into his development than I am to others. I'm always dubious when I feel good about players that I have have had contact with, because there's always like that element of like it's an oversampling bias, or is it like a halo effect or whatever, where you naturally assume that things that are more present in your mind naturally hold more weight. Like, shit, do I know what Jamison Battle's been doing this offseason? What if Jamison Battle has outworked Jacoby Walter every single day this offseason and he's just way better? I don't know. I don't know, man. I really don't. But the truth is, Jacoby just strikes me as a really level-headed, super tough kid. I loved his flashes in the G League, and I just think like with him getting stronger and his work ethic and his mindset, there's so much of success and failure at the NBA level comes down to like your mentality and your mindset and the people you have around you and your humility and your coaching and so many things, And it's just like I get all of these like really, really positive indicators from Jacoby. Like I just do. So there's just no chance. Like to me, here's my faith in Scottie Barnes, right? Here's my faith in Jacoby Walter. It's like it's very, very close between those two. I'm not saying one's going to be better than the other, whatever. I think Scotty's going to be a way better player. I'm saying that's my level of faith in the people behind the work, right? And I have a lot of faith in a lot of players on this team. I have a lot of faith in Ulrich. I have a lot of faith in CMB. There's a lot of positive indicators. This team has done a really great job of assembling guys who have no ego, are super humble, grinders, work hard. Grady came in with that same reputation. Jakob comes in with the same reputation. There's nobody on this team. You know what I mean? Think about the Zion Williamsons, the Ben Simmons, and all those guys, the James Hardens and the Luka Doncic's of the world. And these are very, very talented players. But who on this team, if you had to bet money, actually, let me know in the comment after. If you had to bet money on one player on this team showing up to camp out of shape, who would you bet on? Who would you bet on to be out of shape coming into training camp? I promise you, you're digging into the absolute barrels of impossibility when you're talking about that player, because there's just nobody on this team that has those characteristics. And I would love that about them. CMB late start. I expect CMB to struggle. I expect it to be ugly. And I expect a lot of people to jump ship. I'm not going to be one of them. I'm going to be really patient with this kid because I do have a lot of faith in his long-term ability and his ability to figure things out as they go. And with players like this, there's without the dominant first step, without the necessarily great positional size, there's going to be a figuring out of angles and adjustments and foul trouble and all that stuff, right? Oof. Brandon Ingram being out of shape? Nah, bro. Brandon Ingram, and this I can confirm, Brandon Ingram is in fantastic shape right now. He's doing a great job right now. Grady falls down the rotation. I've already kind of talked about this. I'm not the highest going into this offseason with Grady. I don't know what it is, man. I have a feeling that he's going to get squeezed out because of the defensive focus of his team and just how much of an outlier he is defensively. So yeah, that's pretty much my season breakdown and my season preview of the Toronto Raptors. Please give this video a like if you haven't already. I would very much appreciate it. And shout outs to all of you, man. It was nice to have a lively discussion. I think our Live streams, such an interesting thing. I was thinking about this the other day. We used to have like there used to be like a period of time last year where we're having like 200, 300, 400, 500 people in our live streams. And over the last week and a half to 2 weeks, I've noticed a dwindling number. And I've been very cautious and very cognizant of it. And I was like, why is this happening? And I have a few reasons why this could be happening. One, it's my own fault for turning members only chat on, which I won't do again. And you can rest assured if you're one of those people who's pissed off by that. Number two was there was a video on our channel that actually blew up, which was discussing the Kawhi Leonard saga from the perspective of Pablo Torre. And I have a feeling that because I was looking at our channel analytics and we have so many new viewers coming into our channel because of that video. We got almost 100 subscribers from that video. I think YouTube is starting to think we're like a Clippers channel and doesn't know how to properly suggest videos to us. So if you're one of those people that's like, why haven't I been seeing Pensare basketball videos coming up on my timeline? Maybe you need to turn on your notifications, bro. There's a lot of people that don't have their notifications on. So that's two. Number three, maybe it's oversaturation. Maybe I've overdone it. Maybe I've made too many videos in too short an order, and maybe too many people, the membership stuff. Maybe people were just like, I just don't want to listen to this guy talking about memberships anymore. There's a lot of reasons this could potentially be happening. Or number four, I'm just falling off as a content creator, man. I need to step my game up and make better videos. But regardless of what that is, it's been nice to have 160, 170 people in here at times during this live. And we are going to be doing a Western Conference, Eastern Conference preview at some point this week. We're also going to be doing a video breaking down the top 50 Raptors takes. Raptors takes of Raptors takes. What am I seeing? Mandeep saying Rob's takes were trash today. Yikes. Oops. Oh well. I will sleep on it and be better tomorrow. Man, did I sidestep the shit out of that one? I'm trolling. I know you are. Anyways, shout outs to Joe. You emailed me. I'm glad you got the membership thing figured out. You emailed me about memberships. Shout out to Joe from China. We got Joe from China here, watching Raptor games on tape delay. Shout outs to you, and shout outs to all of you, man. This community is great. I'm looking forward to the season tremendously. I talk about it every single day. Like my friends are so sick and tired of hearing me like, "Oh my god, 22 days until the Raptors." I was like, "Shut up, bro. Y'all not winning jack shit." And I'm like, I am gonna be victory lapping so hard when we're pushing for like home court advantage at the All-Star break. So yeah, I'm really hoping. I have really high hopes for this team. I know I've talked to a lot of community members here who, community subscribers, members who have a lot of high hopes for this team as well. There's obviously a lot of things that things that can go wrong, but yeah. Oh, cool. Was born in Hong Kong, lived very long time in Toronto, now working in China. Dope. Raptors fan since 95. Well, you know what? That's more than I can say. I've only been a Raptors fan since 2000. But shout outs to all of you guys. And Gregory's saying we need 8 more. If you are sitting on the fence about membership, time to get off that fence. Yeah, man. But you know what? Between the gifted memberships, which apparently don't count towards the bonuses, shout outs to Pepperjack, we already crossed like 110 members. So it's really YouTube's like silly little thing that's not, giving us the full bonus. But you know what? Honestly, I'm not upset. I worked hard on this. I made as much content as I possibly could. This community supported the shit out of this initiative. Thank you so, so much to everybody who did this. It's completely awesome. And you know what? I am Kano Agito. Just became a YouTube member. We got 7 to go. We got a day to do it. Shout outs to you. Mr. Canada, you made a lot of videos lately, off season, back to school this month, etc. That's true. That is absolutely true. 5 Adams saying thanks, Rob, great show. Mandeep Singh saying Ingram 26, 27 points per game this season. Damn. 26 to 27 would be absolutely insane, man. There's other ways to get 3K. I normally rob those close to me. You know what's funny? I was at my friend Matthew, he's from Malawi, and he's just going to East Asia now. And he had never watched The Godfather. And so the other day we went over to my friend's house and he watched The Godfather for the first time. And I told her about this YouTube initiative because I was checking my phone to see if like more members had signed up. And she said, I'll sign up. I was like, no. But honestly, man, like my girlfriend offered to sign up too, and I said no. But if we're at like 98 tomorrow at like, at midnight, yeah, like I'm gonna hit up a couple friends to do it for sure. Odin Prime just became a new member. Shout outs to you, Odin. Thank you so much, man. I really wanna, I have a really difficult time asking for help in achieving anything. Honestly, I'm pretty bad at it. And so this has been a huge thing for me, honestly. Like to This is the video we did earlier. I'm just gonna give like a 5-minute detour into that video. The video that we did on Scotty Barnes, Machiavelli, wearing your poverty like a badge of honor, trying to aim for less is a weird thing. You know, we often have a society which sometimes looks down on people who try to stand out too much. And I myself can sometimes be guilty of this. And sometimes I'll watch somebody who's too showy or too showboaty, and I'll just be like, what the fuck's wrong with them? Who are they trying to impress? But the truth is, when you walk into a room, daring to own it, daring to demand respect, daring to stand out, daring to be excellent, these things are extremely courageous acts. And it's so much easier to fade into the background. Gotta say, like, I used to really get off on the idea that I was running pen dance, and I was just like, I used to joke that I was the worst dressed person at pen dance. I run a film festival for those who don't know, and I used to joke and say I'm the worst dressed person at pen dance, and I used to laugh at that, and the joke was on me, right? The joke was on me. I never really understood it. I never really understood it. I never understood how the way you dress impacts the way you feel, impacts your decisions. I never really understood that. It feels like everybody else read this book that I just didn't understand because I was so rebellious against this idea. And so even the concept of like demanding more, wanting more, this idea has just kind of been like almost like Eastern European out of me, to the sense of like settle for less, take whatever you get, be grateful. This idea is just like it's so not into my brain, of be okay with less. And my girlfriend and I often like have this huge, series of debates, and she just got home from camping, so I'm gonna definitely like take 5 minutes to apologize to her for some shit that I've been, gnawing on for a couple of days now. But she and I will often get into this debate about like less than, more than, like, and I sometimes feel like I come from this very lack mentality, and I'll just be like, no, we can't buy that, no, we can't spend on that, and I'm frugal about some of that stuff, right? And she'll just be like, but money can be bought, money can come back, money can come back, and I'm like, well, that's entitled, that's reckless. But this law of abundance that we need to work with, whether it be with our favorite team, or whether it be with our lives, or whether it be with how we dress, or how we purchase things, or how we earn, or how we demand a raise, or whether we chase membership bonuses, whatever. This idea of like, yes, there is this opportunity. Yes, I see it. And yes, I deserve it. And yes, I'm going to go for it. And yes, I'm going to do everything in my power to get it. I was a very ambitious person in my early 20s, and in my late 20s and early 30s, I settled into a less ambitious person. And I think right now there's like an ambition awakening in me where it's not necessarily money driven, but there's this idea that I deserve a seat at the table, and that I will not stop with less. You know what I mean? It's been brimming under the surface, like even reaching out to the Raptors PR department about getting a press pass. Like there's this idea of like, no, I've paid my due and I'm doing good stuff and I deserve a seat at this table and I'm willing to put in the work. And there's this natural thing where when you rise up to a level of, having benchmarks and more subscribers, more people that expect things from you, and, there's more expected of you, and maybe you're in that place where you don't necessarily want the pressure of having more expected from you, right? Like even the memberships thing, I was like, no, I'm not trying to be money grabby, but like maybe my real aversion to launching memberships on my channel was I didn't want to be locked into consistency, right? Because now I'm locked into consistency. I have to do this show every Sunday. I can't just fuck off for an entire week. I have an obligation to members to do this show every Sunday. And so, yeah, so like this, I don't know, I'm kind of spitballing ideas here, but yeah, it's a process of unearthing old ideas and trying to replenish them into better ideas. And I'm consistently working through it. I I hope you can see how I respond to troll comments now has been a remarkable shift from how I did it before. And there's always been a feeling in my mind of like, I don't want to get I don't want to get to the place where I want to get to before I'm ready. And right now I'm just awakening to this idea of like, if I'm not ready now, when will I ever be ready? You know what I mean? Like, am I going to be ready when I'm dead? You know what I mean? Like, I'm 37 years old. Like, am I gonna be ready when I'm 45? I'm gonna be ready when I'm 50? Like, no, I think I'm ready now. Like, let's go do this. Let's go pay off the mortgage. Let's go grow Pensare basketball to the umpteen, level. Let's go dominate the panel. Let's be like the best basketball creator in the world. Let's make great basketball videos. Let's fucking take pen dance to the next level. I just feel good, man. So I think this is as good a time as any to launch my free initiative of the fourth quarter gang. Now, we did the fourth quarter gang last year. It's not technically the fourth quarter until October 1st, but we're starting a little bit early this year. The fourth quarter gang is people who want to meet New Year's as the version of themselves that they want to see: in shape, quit smoking, eat better, better relationships, all of it. So I am initiating the fourth quarter gang starting September 14th. So we're 15, 16 days early right now. We start in the fourth quarter gang right now. Whatever your New Year's resolutions will be on January 1st, write them down today. And instead of trying to do these things on January 1st, meet January 1st, 2026 as the version of yourself that you think you'll want to be then. Let's do it. This idea comes from Brian Macon, actually, weirdly enough. He was talking about, finishing the year strong with Scottie a couple of years ago. And it just kind of got me thinking. I was like, man, maybe everyone fucks up on their New Year's resolutions because New Year's resolutions are stupid, right? Tariq's saying, I want to quit smoking. It's a tough thing, man. Quitting smoking is really hard, really hard. But I will say this, there are ways, for sure. Do it. Do it. Get the patches. Get the patches. Get a sponsor if you need to. Find a support. Find a buddy who's trying to do the same thing. Maybe find someone who's trying to quit, and maybe you can help each other. Sometimes it helps to know. Nicotine is extremely addictive. Obviously, you know that if you're a smoker. I was a smoker for a very long time. I used patches. That helped. And I used nicotine gum. That also helped. So these are things that can help you. But yeah, the benefits are incredible. Your hair will be, I think when things are hard for a lot of people, and I think this is like my golden nugget that I will leave you with. When things are hard, we often think of what it will cost us to get it. And I think our minds are subconsciously very difficult. You know what I mean? Like when someone tells you don't smoke, you're taking 15 years off your life, but you're like, I don't have the 15 years yet, so I don't even know what I'm losing. So people have a really difficult time of adapting to the idea of losing something they never had. But you do know that your day will be more dreadful if you don't have this, toxic stick in your hand. I will say that things that are hard, whether that be really whatever it is that's hard for you, right? If the thing that's hard for you is writing a letter, if the thing that's hard for you is writing an email, if the thing that's hard for you is doing your taxes, or launching your business, or whatever, firing somebody, filing for divorce, whatever that's hard, think about what you get from it instead of what it will take. Think about the benefits of it. Quitting smoking is good for your children. If you have children, it's good for your future generations. It's good for your health. It's good for your skin. It's good for your nails. It's good for your hair. If you're someone, who's smoking for a long enough period of time, you will probably have thinning hair at some point. Your hair will be brittle. Your skin will be gray. Your breath will be better. You'll almost eliminate your chances of getting oral cancer. There's a lot of reasons to quit smoking. So I hope, yeah, smoking isn't always bad. I think it's always bad, but you're definitely free to disagree with that. I think it's always bad. I think for a lot of people, nicotine replacement therapy, gum and stuff like that, that is very addictive because nicotine has some very positive effects on your brain. There's a lot of people that swear that nicotine helps them focus, etc. There's also the appetite suppression element of it. There's a lot of unfortunate cases of young women out there who smoke specifically because it suppresses appetite. There's a lot of There's a lot of research behind this. There's a beautiful podcast by Andrew Huberman, the Huberman podcast, that covers this in detail for an hour and a half. I listened to it. So yeah. Anyways, man, I don't talk to y'all later. Enjoy, and big shout out. We are so freaking close. Odin Prime, Kano Agito, Joe, and Armand. Thank you so much for becoming members. Shout outs to all of our new members. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. Peace. Talk to y'all later.